I've recently finished a game that left a lasting impression on me. As the ending credit rolled, I realized it's been years I hadn't been pulled so deeply into a game with a story that kept me on my feet, binge playing until late into the morning. A game flowing with reminiscences of time past, notably back to the time a game like Dragon Age Origins haunted me. That game is Spellforce III, and today I'll tell you why you should absolutely consider playing it. I don't have an example in recent memory of a game that I felt so underrated. Actually, underrated isn't the right word. Games that have little reputation but that are better than their reputation can be said to be underrated. But in this case, for me, it's simply an excellent game that doesn't have the spotlight it deserves. It's not underrated, it isn't rated enough. Let me start by telling you what Spellforce III is. Spellforce III is a game developed by Grimlore Games and published by THQ. It was initially released in 2017, but has gone through several editions, the latest and truly definitive one being Spellforce III Reforced, released in 2022. It includes several overhauls in key areas of the game, including the main campaign, which is the part that interests us in this video. It is the third major installment in a franchise known for offering a hybrid RPG-RTS experience. The previous titles were released a while back and always have had a dedicated fan base, albeit a somewhat small one. When referring to Spellforce III and my experience of the game, it will always be the Reforced version of the game, as that is the only one I played and the one you should pick up if you decide to give this game a try. Before I dive in, let me say that this video will be completely spoiler-free. It's also not a full-depth review, but rather an effort to share my very positive experience playing this game with people that I think are likely to enjoy it as well. I'd also take a moment, if you appreciate my content, to subscribe, like, and turn on the notification button. I can imagine that at this point some of you might be surprised. Wait, an RPG RTS? How can the RTS aspect remind me of Dragon Age Origins? So if you're somebody that generally focuses on RPGs, make no mistake, this is an RPG in its full right. It has character customization, a class system, party-based real-time combat with abilities, skill trees, and dialogue with choices. In fact, there are whole portions of the campaign, the main story, which are only party-based with no RTS at all. I mean that the whole mission will be your main character going through a map with his party of companions without at any point having to build a base and fight the AI. Now, combat is not as tactical as in an old school RPG because there isn't really a pause system. You can slow time by bringing up an ability wheel, but it isn't practical to carve out an attack plan. So it's a bit more action oriented, as you would expect in a real-time strategy game. And obviously the RPG mechanics here will never be as complex and thorough as in a dedicated game of the genre, but they are more than enough for you to fully enjoy an authentic role-playing experience. Of course, you won't avoid the RTS part as it's the core value of the game to be a hybrid, and unless you are absolutely allergic to any form of real-time based strategy game, you should definitely give it a try. If ever you had fun playing Age of Empires or StarCraft as a casual, you will feel right at home here. But don't think the RPG and RTS part are completely separated, because that's not the case. The RTS part will in fact be a way to continue your role-playing experience as a commander that literally commands an army and defeats the enemy on the battlefield. Unlike so many RPGs with the army commander trope where you never truly lead your army and fight with it, in Spellforce III you will actually be able to command your party, use abilities while leading your troops and fighting in the very middle of them, your party and yourself really being able to make a huge difference and turning the tide of a skirmish. If you are a hardcore RTS fan though, I have no idea if Spellforce III would answer to your needs and be good on that front, as I'm not one of you. I played the RTS portions casually in a role-playing perspective and never touched multiplayer. Because of that real-time aspect, Spellforce III, in the very way it presents itself as a top-down, fake 3D isometric game, will remind you of Dragon Age Origins as you venture into villages, underground caves, and mysterious ruins. But it isn't for its visual aspect and RPG mechanics that Spellforce III struck me, although the game looks beautiful and the classes and abilities are a ton of fun. Where Spellforce truly shines for me is in its story. It hooked me without faltering from the very first hours all the way to the climactic ending. A plot shrouded in mystery with strong twists and gradual revelations that will keep you wanting to go always further. Spellforce III's story isn't unique though. In fact, one could argue that it pretty much follows the usual fantasy tropes. But it does it so well in its execution that it delivers exactly what we yearn for, which is a well-crafted, classical fantasy epic. The world settings with humans, dwarves, and elves will remind you of Dragon Age Origins. It even follows, for a time, that familiar gather your allies from all races story arc, although it is done in a subtle and in a meaningful way, so that it doesn't feel like a here we go again moment, at least to me. The story isn't deep enough to convey a philosophical or poetic experience, but it will provide you with a strong string of emotions. And the way it achieves this is with a great set of characters, including your companions, which, defying my expectations, I actually grew to like and get attached to. Now, don't be tempted into thinking these are BioWare level companions. Not close. Nonetheless, compared to all other recent so-called old-school RPGs I've tried, and that includes Pillars of Eternity, Pathfinder Kingmaker, Tyranny, etc., Spellforce 3 is by far the game where I cared the most for my companions. This is also due to unexpectedly well-voiced dialogues.
No, this can't be.
They're all dead.
Oh, really? Just how did you guess that?
Seems I'm late for the party. Good job you did there, High Keeper. It's not like I warned you this would happen if you didn't cooperate.
You bloody piece of filth! I swear I'll...
He's right, Keeper. If you hadn't refused to cooperate with the Deathmen, these soldiers might still be alive.
How dare you?
Forgive me, but we should not discuss this now. What about the tomb? Where are...
What was that?
The Vile Dark. The undead. They must have broken the seal.
There's no other choice. I need to perform the ritual.
What? No, you...
They will try to stop me. Defend me as long as you can.
Are you deaf? Stop it right now. This is an order.
Shit. Here they come.
The quality production here is high, and given what I would imagine their budget to be given their niche, Grimlore Games has definitely been punching above their category. It is also served by a high-quality soundtrack with an epic vibe that will no doubt remind you once again of Dragon Age Origins. I mean, check out some of these tracks. The graphics, the voice acting, the epic story, the soundtrack all lead to a great medieval fantasy atmosphere game that will really give into that old school BioWare epic you've been yearning for. I'd say that the true letdown compared to the legendary franchise is in the lack of real consequences to your choices. While there are choices, they are more often than not cosmetic choices or gameplay choices, which way to beat the enemy for example, rather than character development choices that will affect the plotline. The main story will remain pretty much unchanged whatever you decide, even when the decisions look massively important and impactful. And I was pretty disappointed when the ending didn't come with a conclusion slideshow with the state of the world following your choices throughout the game, a la Dragon Age. To summarize, I think Spellforce 3 just surprised me with its quality. It's not a masterpiece, but it's simply excellent at what it tries to achieve and has little glaring flaws. This made for a truly fun experience I hadn't had in a while. That's what I kept saying to myself while playing the game. It's good to finally feel so invested in a story, a world, a cast of characters, in an RPG with a classic epic fantasy setting. And from then, the Dragon Age Origins memories and vibes just flowed in. The truth is, most party-based real-time RPGs I've played until then never provided me with a similar feeling, except Tyranny, which I really liked. But I don't remember it pulling me in with the same intensity Spellforce did. If I'm making this video, it's because I feel this game really deserves much more recognition than it actually has. I just can't recommend it enough to people with a niche for a good party-based real-time RPG. And I know I haven't mentioned much about the RTS aspect of the game, but I fully enjoyed it. I'm not a specialist of RTS, so all I can say is that it didn't go in the way of the RPG part of the game, and on the contrary, made it a more unique experience. I really enjoyed being, again, like in Age of Empires, at building my base, my armies, having those rare super powerful units, and clashing them against enemies. My endgame party being able to almost wipe out an attacking force on their own, which is very satisfying to watch. I played this game as an RPG fan, and the RTS part was great. That's why I felt the need to make this video, to draw in players that might mistakenly think this game isn't for them, or not an RPG enough to be worth it. But as you've understood by now, it definitely is. If you like Dragon Age Origins, if you want a great game to play in a medieval fantasy world with a robust story and great production value, play Spellforce 3. So that's all on my side. I'm curious to know if some of you have played the game and agree with my assessment, or if you are thinking of giving it a try. If so, please leave a comment. I always answer them when relevant, since I'm just starting my channel. Speaking of which, if you enjoyed my content, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning the notification button. I'm at the start of my journey, and each of those has a huge impact for me. Thanks again, and see you all in the next one.